For hundreds of thousands of years, nightfall meant something very different than it does today. No streetlights, no locked doors, no flashlights, no way to see what was hiding just beyond the reach of a fire. In a cave in northern Spain, archaeologists discovered something unusual. Deep inside, mixed among the remains of ancient humans, were bones from some of the most dangerous predators that ever lived in Ice Age Europe. Cave lions, hyenas, massive bears. For years, researchers struggled to understand what had happened there. Were humans hunting these animals? Or were the animals hunting humans? The answer turned out to be far more disturbing. At different times, both species had occupied the same shelters, the same caves, the same territory, sometimes separated by centuries, sometimes possibly by only days. Imagine arriving at your shelter after sunset and realizing the creature that slept there last night wasn't another human. It was a predator weighing half a ton. And that raises a terrifying question. How did ancient humans survive the night at all? Today, darkness is mostly an inconvenience. You flip a switch and the darkness disappears. But for most of human history, darkness transformed the world into something completely different. A world where humans were no longer the hunters. They became the hunted. And the deeper scientists looked into prehistoric life, the stranger this mystery became. Because ancient humans weren't the strongest creatures around. They weren't the fastest. They didn't have claws. They didn't have fangs. They couldn't outrun wolves or outfight bears. By every obvious measure, they should have been easy prey. Yet somehow our ancestors survived long enough to spread across the planet. The answer seemed obvious. Fire. Fire kept predators away. Fire gave humans light. Fire made the night safe. Or at least that's what many researchers believed. But there was a problem. The evidence didn't fit. Archaeological sites show that even after humans mastered fire, dangerous predators continued living remarkably close to them. In some regions, cave lions, hyenas, wolves, and humans shared the same landscapes for thousands of years. If fire solved everything, why didn't these predators stay away? Why do so many prehistoric sites contain evidence of constant competition between humans and carnivores? And that's where things get strange. Scientists began studying the behavior of modern predators living in Africa. Lions, leopards, hyenas, animals whose ancestors behaved much like the predators ancient humans faced. What they discovered was chilling. Most large predators are far more active after dark. Their senses become deadly advantages. A lion doesn't need bright light. A hyena can hear movements humans would never notice. Some predators can detect tiny sounds from astonishing distances. As the sun disappeared, the balance of power shifted. During the day, humans could see threats approaching. At night, that advantage vanished. Suddenly, predators owned the darkness, and ancient humans knew it. In fact, evidence suggests that many prehistoric groups may have organized their entire lives around one terrifying reality. The night was dangerous. Far more dangerous than most people today can imagine. But if darkness was such a deadly threat, another mystery appears. Why did humans keep pushing into some of the harshest environments on Earth? Why move into regions filled with giant predators if every sunset could become a fight for survival? The answer begins with a discovery that completely changed what scientists thought they knew about ancient fear. That discovery came from a place most people would never expect, not from a weapon, not from a skeleton, but from ancient campsites. Across Europe, Asia, and parts of Africa, archaeologists noticed a pattern that kept appearing over and over again. Ancient humans didn't place their camps randomly. When researchers mapped hundreds of prehistoric sites, they found that many groups repeatedly chose locations with unusually good visibility. Elevated ground, open landscapes, areas where approaching animals could be spotted from a distance. At first, this seemed obvious. Of course, people wanted a good view. But then scientists realized something important. Many of these locations were not necessarily the best places to find food. They were not always close to water. Some weren't even the most comfortable places to live. So why choose them? Because survival wasn't just about finding food. It was about surviving until morning. A camp hidden among trees might offer shelter from the wind, but it also gave predators places to hide. A camp on an exposed ridge might be colder, but nothing could sneak up on you. And suddenly, ancient campsite choices began making sense. Humans weren't simply building homes, they were building early warning systems. Every decision carried consequences. A better view meant a better chance of spotting danger. Spotting danger meant more time to react. More time to react meant a greater chance of surviving the night. But this created a new mystery. If visibility mattered so much, why do we find so many ancient humans living inside caves? After all, caves seem like the perfect trap. One entrance, limited visibility, no escape routes. The answer seemed obvious. Caves provided protection. They blocked wind. They offered warmth. They shielded people from storms. But once again, the evidence didn't fit, because caves came with a terrifying disadvantage. Many predators loved caves too. Cave bears, cave lions, hyenas, leopards. For them, caves were valuable real estate. In some regions, humans weren't moving into empty shelters. They were competing for them. Imagine what that meant. Every time a group approached a cave, they may not have known what was waiting inside. A safe shelter, or something with teeth. Archaeologists have discovered caves showing repeated cycles of occupation. Humans move in, humans leave. Predators move in, predators leave. Then humans return again. The pattern repeats. It's almost as if ownership constantly changed hands. And that tells us something shocking. Ancient humans were not dominant masters of their environment. Not yet. For much of prehistory, they were simply one species among many, struggling to survive. And nowhere was that struggle more intense than after sunset. But then scientists discovered something unexpected. When they studied injuries on prehistoric human skeletons, they found evidence of attacks that looked remarkably similar to injuries caused by large predators. Puncture wounds, crushing injuries, bite marks. Some individuals survived these encounters, others clearly did not. Suddenly, the threat wasn't theoretical anymore. The predators weren't merely nearby. Sometimes they made contact. Sometimes they won. And that's when researchers began asking an uncomfortable question. How much of human psychology was shaped by fear? Not abstract fear. Not fear of failure. Not fear of embarrassment. Fear of being eaten. Because for countless generations, that was a real possibility. Every rustle in the darkness could mean danger. Every unexplained sound demanded attention. Every shadow could hide something deadly. The humans who ignored those warnings often didn't leave descendants. The humans who remained alert survived. And over thousands upon thousands of years, that may have changed the human mind itself. But there was a problem with this theory. Modern humans are afraid of darkness, yet many animals live with predators and don't show the same intense reaction. So why does darkness feel so deeply unsettling to us? Why can a perfectly safe room suddenly feel different when the lights go out? The answer wasn't hiding in human bones. It was hiding inside the human brain. And what scientists found there revealed a survival adaptation that may have helped save our species. For a long time, researchers assumed fear of darkness was mostly cultural. Children learn it from stories. Movies reinforce it. Parents warn about dangers lurking outside. Simple. Except there was one problem. Versions of this fear appear almost everywhere. Across continents, across cultures, across societies that developed independently from one another. Again and again, humans showed the same pattern. Darkness triggered caution. Darkness increased anxiety. Darkness made people more alert. And scientists began wondering whether something much older was involved. To investigate, Researchers studied what happens inside the brain when visibility suddenly disappears. The results were fascinating. When humans can't clearly see their surroundings, the brain starts compensating. It becomes more sensitive to sounds, more sensitive to movement, more sensitive to anything that might signal danger. In other words, the brain shifts into a heightened state of awareness. Today, that reaction might activate because of a strange noise in an empty house. But for ancient humans, the consequences were much more serious. A missed sound could mean death. A delayed reaction could mean death. One mistake in the dark could be fatal. And that's where things get even stranger. Many of the predators ancient humans faced possessed abilities humans simply couldn't match. A cave lion could see far better in low light. Hyenas could track sounds over enormous distances. Leopards could move through darkness with astonishing stealth. As daylight faded, humans lost access to the sense they depended on most: vision. The very tool that made them effective hunters during the day became far less useful at night. And suddenly, humans faced a terrifying disadvantage. They were entering a battle on enemy territory. Imagine standing beside a small fire 50,000 years ago. Beyond the light is complete darkness. You hear something move. You don't know what it is. You don't know how far away it is. You don't know whether it's moving toward you. Meanwhile, whatever made the sound may already know exactly where you are. That uncertainty was the real threat. Not knowing, not seeing, not understanding what was hiding out there. Because the human brain hates uncertainty. And ancient humans lived with uncertainty every single night. But then scientists uncovered evidence that changed the entire story. Because fear alone doesn't explain how humans survived. Fear can keep you alert. Fear can make you cautious. But fear by itself doesn't defeat predators. Something else was happening. Something that may have become one of the most important survival tools in human history. Researchers began looking closely at one behavior that separates humans from almost every other species: storytelling. At first, it sounded ridiculous. What does storytelling have to do with survival? Quite a lot, it turns out. In many hunter-gatherer societies studied in modern times, nighttime was when stories were shared. Around fires, inside shelters, among groups gathered together after dark. For years, scientists assumed these stories existed mainly for entertainment. Then they looked closer. Many stories contained warnings. Warnings about dangerous places, dangerous animals, dangerous behaviors, lessons disguised as narratives, knowledge disguised as entertainment. And suddenly, a remarkable possibility emerged. What if stories were actually survival technology? A child doesn't need to personally encounter a predator to learn caution. A story can teach the lesson first. A group doesn't need every member to make the same deadly mistake. Knowledge can be passed on, generation after generation, night after night. The darkness wasn't just creating fear, it was creating communication. And communication was creating survival advantages. But this created a new mystery. If storytelling helped humans survive dangerous nights, why did humans become so unusually social compared to other animals? Why did our ancestors gather in large groups when many predators hunted alone? The answer would lead scientists toward one of the biggest revelations in human history. Because the thing ancient humans feared most about the night may have accidentally helped create the modern human world? At first glance, living in larger groups seems like a simple solution. More people means more eyes, more ears, more protection, problem solved. But there was a cost. A large group needed more food, more resources, more cooperation, more trust. Managing dozens of individuals wasn't easy. In fact, for many species, it isn't worth the effort. So why did humans keep doing it? The answer seemed obvious. Safety. But once again, the evidence suggested something deeper. Researchers studying hunter-gatherer societies noticed a fascinating pattern. As darkness approached, social activity often increased rather than decreased. People gathered closer together. Conversations became more frequent. Stories were shared. Information flowed through the group. And the benefits were enormous. One person might know where predators had recently been seen. Another might know which valleys were dangerous. Another might remember a route to water during drought. Knowledge wasn't stored in books. It was stored in people. The group itself became a survival tool, and that's when scientists began to suspect that the night had done something extraordinary. It may have pushed humans toward becoming the most cooperative species on Earth, because darkness created a problem no individual could solve alone. A lone human sitting beside a fire was vulnerable. A coordinated group was much harder to attack. Predators look for weakness, isolation, opportunity. A tightly connected community removed many of those opportunities. But then scientists discovered something unexpected. When they compared humans to other predators and prey species, they noticed a strange contradiction. Humans are physically unimpressive. Compared with bears, we're weak. Compared with wolves, we're slow. Compared with big cats, we're practically defenseless. Yet humans eventually spread into environments that many powerful predators couldn't dominate. Frozen tundra, dense forests, deserts, mountain ranges. How? The answer wasn't strength, it wasn't speed, and it wasn't fear. It was information. For millions of years, evolution had favored sharper claws, stronger jaws, and faster bodies. Humans took a completely different path. We evolved ways to share knowledge. And nowhere was that more important than at night. Imagine two groups separated by thousands of years. The first group learns through direct experience. Every danger must be discovered personally. Mistakes are deadly. Progress is slow. The second group passes knowledge from one generation to the next. Children inherit lessons they never had to learn themselves. Each generation starts where the previous one left off. Suddenly, survival becomes much easier. And that's the twist. The night wasn't merely humanity's enemy. It may have been one of humanity's greatest teachers. Because every challenge darkness created forced humans to become better communicators, better planners, better cooperators, better problem solvers. The very conditions that terrified our ancestors may have helped shape the traits that eventually made humans dominant. And when archaeologists look at the long arc of human history, they see this pattern again and again. Danger creates adaptation. Adaptation creates advantage. Advantage changes the future. What began as fear eventually became power. But there is one final piece of the puzzle, one clue hiding in plain sight. Because despite electricity, cities, security systems, and modern technology, the ancient night hasn't completely released its grip on us. Even today, millions of people feel uneasy in total darkness. A sudden noise in the dark captures our attention instantly. An unexplained movement triggers alertness. A shadow can still make the heart race. Logically, we know we're safe. Yet something older still reacts, something inherited from countless generations who had very good reasons to be cautious. And that realization changes how we think about our ancestors. They weren't primitive people stumbling through a hostile world. They were survivors navigating one of the most dangerous environments humans have ever faced. Every sunset brought uncertainty. Every night tested their awareness, cooperation, and ingenuity. Every morning was proof that they had succeeded once again. And when you think about it, that's perhaps the most remarkable part of the story. For most of human existence, survival wasn't measured in years, it was measured in nights. One more night survived, one more dawn reached, one more opportunity to pass knowledge to the next generation. The archaeological record is filled with tools, bones, campsites, and ancient shelters. But behind every one of those discoveries is a reality we rarely consider. Someone had to make it through the darkness. Someone had to hear the distant growl and stay alert. Someone had to keep the fire alive. Someone had to remember where danger waited. And someone had to teach those lessons to their children. Because the night never stopped testing them. The answer to our mystery, then, isn't that ancient humans were simply afraid of the dark. They had every reason to be. The darkness concealed predators. It reduced visibility. It magnified uncertainty. It transformed familiar landscapes into places of risk. Fear was not weakness. Fear was information. It was a survival system built through countless generations of trial and error. The humans who respected danger were more likely to survive. The humans who survived passed their instincts forward. And over immense stretches of time, those instincts became part of us. But there was one final consequence that nobody expected. The same nights that threatened humanity may have helped create humanity itself. Think about it. When darkness made individuals vulnerable, people gathered together. When uncertainty increased, they communicated. When danger appeared, they cooperated. When survival became difficult, they shared knowledge. Those behaviors didn't just help humans survive predators. They laid the foundation for everything that came afterward. Families, communities, language, culture, traditions, civilizations. The roots of all of them can be traced back to a simple reality. Humans needed each other. And nowhere was that truth more obvious than after sunset. In a strange way, the predators stalking beyond the firelight helped shape the species sitting around the fire. The threats were real. The fear was real. But so were the adaptations those threats produced. And that's why the story of the night is really the story of humanity. Because our greatest advantage was never sharper teeth or stronger muscles. It was our ability to face danger together, to share information, to learn from the past, to prepare for the future. While other animals relied on instinct alone, humans built networks of knowledge that could outlive any individual. That strategy changed everything. Eventually, humans spread across continents. They crossed frozen landscapes. They entered deserts. They survived environments that should have defeated them, not because the night became less dangerous, but because humans became better at overcoming it. So the next time you find yourself in a dark room and feel a sudden sense that something might be watching, remember this: that feeling may be older than cities, older than agriculture, older than written history. It may be a faint echo from a time when the darkness beyond a small circle of firelight truly mattered. A reminder from ancestors who lived in a world where every sunset brought uncertainty, and every sunrise was a victory, because long before humans conquered the night, they first had to survive it.